Watch the lioness coming now, just from the right-hand side. And now she's having a drink, basically under your foot. What a fantastic way to start a day. So this is the full Nkuhuma Pride, 5 lionesses, 8 cubs, and that male part of a coalition called the Birmingham Boys. And there are 4 of them. If you listen very carefully, you might just be able to hear the lapping of the tongues. Perfect start to the morning. The cub going up to the male. That's unusual. Don't see that all the time. Often they're a bit nervous of the males. He's now, if you watch him, he's doing what we call a frem and grimace. He's trying to tell if the female is ready to mate or not. And all the little ones going up to say hello, but you can see they're a little reticent. That's very sweet. Just killed 2 buffalo yesterday, so they're probably quite thirsty. And that male doesn't, it's that female there that's causing him his angst. He doesn't like her being around. And the one on the ground in front of him you can see lying in sort of supplication. Her ears flat. He does not want her to move, and he doesn't want her distracted by the rest of the pride. Anyone trying to distract her is going to get themselves into trouble. All the while these lionesses drink muddy water just below and to the left. Oh, it's just wonderful watching the males play with the little cubs like that. Just careful of this lioness in front of us, everybody. She's looking into your eyes. Brilliant. Kill it now. Brilliant. Oh, not yet, hang on.
Oh, we're in the show now.
The sun is just about to peep up over the eastern horizon now. You can see it slowly getting brighter, the light turning gold. We can hear a special bird called a ground hornbill calling. Oh, hang on a second, I'm just going to move. Hello everybody, I do apologise for my reticence. I'll tell you what happened earlier. It was I didn't plug my earpiece in, which is very stupid. There's quite a lot of kind of anger going on here. I'm just going to back up slightly. I don't want to be quite in this line of fire. And what's going on is that the male is being very irritated by the females, mainly because he's trying to mate with the one he's following over there. And he's just, every time she goes near any of the others, he gets really upset and he starts chasing them. And then the cubs scatter and the lionesses scatter, and it's all action here. So good morning. I'm sorry I didn't greet you earlier. I didn't know what was going on, and it was entirely my fault. I apologise profusely. My name is James. Brian's on camera. Hello, Brian.
Hi, James.
How are you on Saturday?
No, I'm good.
There's the Saturday thumb, everybody, and here we are with the full Nkuhuma Pride, 5 lionesses, 8 little cubs, and of course 1 male lion who's trying to mate with a female who's probably not quite in full estrus yet. Now they're just kind of calling to each other. And what you did was tell us, everyone, of course, that there were lions on the dam wall. So we came down here, just the male and the female. Then as we got here at about 10 to 5, the rest of them came wandering out of the bushes to the western side of where we are. And I think they did that. They've come from Arathusa last night. And there's a great deal of playing, which is wonderful. It's just great. one with a floppy ear, I think, isn't it? Trying still to suckle. Now, everyone, I have to tell you, I'm slightly disappointed in myself, but I think that I've only... I can't remember exactly how old they are. I think we're looking at 6 months. It must be almost 6 months, the biggest ones. And then 5 months, probably plus minus. And then maybe 4 months after that. I don't know. It might be slightly younger than that. Say 5, 4, and 3. Does anybody remember exactly when they were born? I think the teddies were born in July, if I'm not mistaken, so August, September, which would put them at 3 months. The teddies being the 3 youngest. And the other 2 were about 3 weeks after that, before that, so that would put them just older, about a month older. Now let's go with 3, 4, and 5, unless anybody can remember otherwise. Quite astounding how we forget these things. Now you can, of course, talk to us through the course of the morning. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. The confusion this morning was caused by, firstly, my idiocy, and secondly, they were standing right next to us, of course, which you saw, and so we just fired up that VR rig thing on the front of the car just to try and get one of those virtual reality shots. But no matter, here we are. I hope you'll forgive me. I hope the directors in the final control will forgive me. I might not be allowed home today, Brian.
No, me neither.
You not, definitely not. You. It's a most gorgeous morning after what was a hot and sticky and itchy night, I must say. But here we are in the coolth of the dawn. Sun not yet quite popped over the eastern horizon. And we have magnificent lion sighting. It's a teddy chasing down a cousin. And of course we must just quickly mention that there is this state of this interesting state of mange that the little ones have. There you can see it on the elbows of that one there. And I don't think they're looking too weak. Oof, dear. Now, Kevin, as we see that, you say you think a male killed a cub. Kevin, no, don't worry. A male didn't kill the cubs. We've got all 8 here. I tell you what, though, when we did get here, I thought that there were only 7. And then a lioness emerged with the other one a little bit later. But if you count them, they're all here. Let me just do it for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, hang on, I'm sure we saw 8. We did see 8, didn't we? Yes. Oh, there's one in the bushes there. There are 8. So they're all here, Kevin. Fear not. That male has been pretty vicious, and I watched some amazing footage yesterday, but I don't know who got it, but it was, well, it was someone here, but it was a male pulling a cub off a carcass. Was it you, Brian? There's some elephants screaming there.
No.
And it was a buffalo carcass. The male was eating on the bottom of the jaw, and one of the cubs was sort of lying on the carcass trying to get into the skin underneath, and the male got irritated, swatted him once, and the cub didn't move. The male actually retaliated, at least the cub retaliated. The male then grabbed the cub, stuck his claws into that kind of skin behind the head, and pulled the cub off the carcass and tossed it to the ground. The cub, undaunted, then tried to swat the male in the face. So they really are already very tough little creatures. Brian, should we try for that eye-level view again? Or are you happy here?
No, it's fine.
Now I'm just going to move down here. Right, okay, Liz, thank you very much for that. You say the oldest of these cubs was born mid-June and the youngest mid-July. So there's only a month between them. So the oldest ones, as we head to mid-November, July, August, September, October, November, will be 5 months. So that was correct. 5 months, 4.5 months, and 4 months. Thank you very much for that, Liz. We'll remember that. Middle of June, they're only 2 weeks apart then each litter. Middle of June, middle of July. And we always quite like these eye-level views because it gives you kind of a interesting impression of the lions. Okay, we're not going anywhere, but Byron has managed to spot a great ball of hydrogen gas and nuclear explosions on the eastern horizon. Now, we're back again, everybody. This time I did hear it. I do apologize again for my recalcitrance earlier, but here we are. Magnificent, magnificent sighting. I'm just listening to Aubrey at the moment. He's found some leopard tracks. And I'm just going to ask Kirsty to ask Byron to get hold of him on the radio, if you wouldn't mind, Kirsten. Now, unfortunately, Brian, there seems to be some litter here that the that little cub has picked up, and it's a piece of piping that was pulled out of the ground by one of the elephants. Byron, please. Sorry, hold on a sec, everybody. Byron, please get hold of Aubrey. He's got leopard tracks for you. Now that pipe, of course, feeds the Djuma Dam pan, or it used to. I think it's a piece of disused piping. Anyway, it won't do any harm. It just looks a bit odd, really. Now, if we look at the back there, amber eyes and the male are awake. Oh, this is my best. It's my best when the cubs go towards the males. Now, which male are we looking at there? Is that Tinyo and Soko? It's definitely not Mfumo, who's got a hole in his face. Isn't that equal sign across the nose there? It is. Which will change, of course. Now, for those of you who've missed it, our 4 Birmingham boys, they're named Tinyo, the tooth, and Suku, the yellow one, Nana, the warrior, and Mfumo, the authority. This is wonderful to see. Now, the males being a lot more tolerant. You can see there the eyes of our favourite lioness, amber eyes. That is her, isn't it? And the 2 little cubs just below us here, trying to suckle. And of course they will all suckle. They will all still be suckling, because they only wean when they're 6 months old. So there will still be a lot of attempts to drink milk. This is rather marvellous, I must say. Hello, Melinda. Interesting update from you, and thank you very much for it, because I think it's quite crucial that information like this gets through to us. You say you saw lions mating on the dam cam, and afterwards they rolled around. And you say, does that mean it was successful? It often does, you know. It often means that the female has that there has been a successful coupling, not to put too fine a point on it. And when she rolls around like that, it generally means that things have done what they're supposed to. So yes, quite possibly. But if this is amber eyes, which I'm pretty sure it is, given the colour of her eyes, I'm surprised. Look at him spraying there. I'm surprised that she's still mating, because she's been in a kind of what we call proto-estrus or estrus before estrus for so long now, and I would have thought she'd be pregnant by now. And so if she's mating again, I think it's quite interesting. Because the youngster, the very young one, was mating with Nkuhuma, or he was attempting to mate with her the other day. So that is quite, yeah. I think it's quite a good thing, though, that the two of them are, they put it off for a little while, just in case this mange thing is A, caused by the dryness, and B, continues to infect the pride, because if it does, we don't want new cubs here yet. We want the pride to get over it before we get any new cubs in the area. So I'm not too sad that Amber Eyes is very clearly not pregnant yet. But where the other male is, I don't know. We did hear him calling off to the east earlier this morning. And it's an interesting one from William, and an answer that I'm just not sure that we'll ever be able to completely answer. You say, do I think the males know the difference between their own cubs, their biological cubs, and those that aren't there? So, but would he know the difference between his cubs and his brothers? I'm going to say, I really don't know. We know that, for example, the Matimbas, it was normally the hairy-bellied male, the bigger male, that used to mate with the females. But of course, the what would we call the other one again? It was hairy belly and, goodness gracious. Anyway, the other one with the red hair.
Blondie.
Blondie. He was called Blondie. That's Blondie. We didn't see mating, or I certainly didn't, by the time I'd got here. But he played a very affectionate role with the cubs. Now, did he have any idea that they weren't his? Well, he hadn't mated, so I think it's likely that he didn't know. But didn't make him any less affectionate. And of course, he was related, we think, to the hairy belly Matimba. And so, in effect, he is still looking after his own genetic line, albeit not quite as strongly as a lion that has mated. So, I'm going to say no, I don't think they know the difference. I think they will look after the cubs within their own pride, and they're not particularly concerned about whether or not they are theirs. I might be entirely wrong, though. Now, I think we're staring down the barrel of a pretty hot day today. Kirsten, what is their weather report? Because I don't think these lions are going to do a great deal from here. That said, they have been killing buffalo at an alarming rate. If you happen to be a buffalo, that is. And we're looking at 37 degrees Celsius or 99 degrees Fahrenheit, apparently. So it's going to be very hot. And I don't think they're going to move much from here. I think they're going to go down into the drainage line. I think they'll lie in the shade. And that's all they're going to do, unless a buffalo comes wandering past, in which case they will almost certainly kill it. Now, this pride is really, it's been amazingly successful. Jeremiah, I've seen lions eat some amazing things. You say, well, what is the strangest thing I've ever seen one eat? Well, I've seen them eat human clothing before. That's quite interesting to watch. I think we had an incident the other day where someone dropped a hat in a lion sighting, and that was devoured and played with, certainly. I think I've seen lions eating other lion dung, which is quite disgusting. But the very strangest thing I've seen, of course, is a lion eating his brother. And his brother died of natural causes, and he then ate him. So that was the strangest thing I've ever seen happen. Something has arrested this cub's attention. I don't know what it is. There was some mating going on there. That's what that noise was. Now, I would have said that was not a successful mating or coupling as they go down into the shade. Let's move around the top here, and then we'll head down into the... Want to see if we couldn't perhaps spot what had arrested that cub's attention. Like a leopard, perhaps. There doesn't seem to be anything. We'll just drive along here and see where those lions are going. And they're all still messing around over there, so let's go back again. Let's go back to where we were. Sorry, everybody. I just thought we might see a different angle. Oh, now, another one. Follow-on from William. Do I think the lionesses can tell their own offspring? Yeah, I think they can. Why do I think that? I have no reason to say that, but I'm going to say yes. I think they can probably tell their own offspring. But, you know, they do obviously do completely cross-suckle, which means that there's not a huge amount of worry whether they are there or aren't their own cubs. But these guys must know the difference because they're all different sizes. I might be totally wrong, though, William. I'm not sure. It'd be very difficult to tell, I think. It'd be very difficult to find out if they knew. I'd love to be interesting to kind of design an experiment. So let's pretend you had lions in a laboratory conditions, as we say. And would they be able to tell the difference between their own cubs and their sister's cubs? And how would you be able to tell that? What kind of test could you put in place? Now, why don't you try and come up with an experiment, everybody? A thought experiment. Hashtag Safari Live question to WildEarthTV. Now, Brian, off there we've got ground hornbills on the Ingwe Alley. It's very awkward flying. Marvellous. Yeah, so everything seems to have calmed down at the lions. This is not unusual after an evening of activity, and it's always, you know, it's quite interesting. We've been discussing, Graham and I, the other day about when lions are most active, and we were trying to find kind of a, I mean, you'd think we'd know after all this time out here, but it's really not that easy to figure it out because we don't see them at night a great deal. You know, we pack it up and go home as soon as it gets dark. And from what we can find, it would seem that the most active time for lions, of course, we know straight after sunset they get going and then they hunt for a while, but also just before dawn, just before the sun comes up, probably for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. They call if they're being territorial, they hunt if they're hungry, and they play if they're youngsters. And you can see as the sun came up here, they all calmed down. So for about half an hour before you came live, I suspect they were moving between Arathusa and exactly where they are now. And as that sun popped over the horizon, things have calmed down completely. And I think there's going to be a substantial amount of slumber going on here. It is the weekend, though, after all, Brian. We don't want them to sort of stress themselves out. Shall we try and drive down the spillway here and see if we can't get a shot? The sand might be quite soft, but I think it's probably hardened enough in the sun over the last few days. Now, Whitney, you're saying if they wouldn't take in an orphaned cub, surely they must know their own cubs. Whitney, I think that they certainly know the cubs from the Pride, but do they know their own cubs? So, do they know their own cubs from their sisters' cubs? I'm not convinced that they do. Absolutely, they know the cubs in the Pride, for sure. We're now eye level with this little mangy fellow. Yeah, and Mind Warp, you make a very good point. You say you reckon they probably could tell the cubs apart because they did spend a month alone with them, and so they must have some kind of familial smell. Yeah, I think that's logical. And certainly that would be, to me, the obvious way for them to be told by their mothers, by some kind of smell. These poor little things still scratching away at his mange. Oh, it's not ideal, really. Time will tell. They're eating plenty, so they have the best possible chance of getting over this disease. Shamrock, haven't heard from you for a while. Wonderful to hear from you. It's obviously Saturday, so I know you used to watch this show at work, which of course was an excellent idea. Shamrock, a question that I do not know the answer to, I'm afraid. I'm not insufficiently medically trained. But you say, is it possible that if an adult got over the disease and had the antibodies to fight it off, would they pass that on to their cubs? I imagine that they would, you know. I really don't know for sure, but I imagine that the presence of the antibodies in the mother's blood must surely get into the fetus. This thing does not look healthy, does it, Brian? It's looking, well, mangy and also breathing unevenly, but that's because its belly is so full of buffalo. And that, of course, is going to be its best defense against the mange. Good meals, home-cooked meals, care from the Pride, and a healthy dose of luck. Right, let's go and find out if Byron has managed to find any tracks of the Queen. In the meantime, I'm going to sit here for a little while longer, and then once everything's settled down, we'll go and find something else. The lions are doing very little, everybody, and so we're going to just spend another 5 or 10 minutes with them, and then we're going to head off and see what else this Guy Fawkes Day has to offer us. I've forgotten about that. Do you remember that, Brian?
I do.
It's Guy Fawkes.
Oh, completely forgot.
Yes, the day Mr. Guy Fawkes tried to explode the Parliament. I think of, was it King Charles II?
I'm not too sure.
One of the royal stewards, of course, and apparently a complete imbecile. Which is sad, because he was a Scottish king. It's also Scott Dyson's birthday, which is, for those of you who remember Scott, you'll join us in wishing him a happy Safari Live birthday. He's in Kenya and he's guiding at the moment, which will make him very happy. It's absolute peace now. We've got doves calling in the background. Jim, you say the loud birds, I think they're the doves I've just mentioned. They're going proop, 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 which is the ring-necked dove, or the Cape turtle dove it used to be known as. Oh, deeply fatigued. We're going to do one, let me go a little bit forward and we can have one last eye-level view. And then I think we're into the law of diminishing returns, as they say. And by that I just mean that I think we've got to the point at which, well, you know, staying here is not going to enhance our impression of these lions. If you do hear what sounds like the dim crackle of rifle fire, fear not, we're not under attack. It is that the photographic vehicle in front of us is firing off on auto motor drive. I do feel a little intimidated when I see that vehicle, Brian.
Me too.
No, something's up. What are they looking at? Well, like I said, there was a male calling behind earlier this morning. I don't think that's what's going on here. Maybe it's an impala or something that's thinking about coming down for a drink. Might be a buffalo thinking about coming down for a drink. In which case, if Taylor was here, these lions would almost certainly kill it within seconds. Beautiful, beautiful morning. Soon to turn into a deeply hot day. Kristen, I think people often wonder about this, especially in winter when it's cold and especially when you see little cubs. You say, is the lion's hair rough or smooth? It's smoothish. I haven't felt the cub's hair. I've felt an adult lion who had recently shaken off this mortal coil. I felt her hair, and it's I'm trying to think where I felt it, but it's actually, you know what it feels like. I don't know if you felt a horse with a summer coat on, so a big animal like that. It feels very similar to that. So completely unlike a sort of a cat's hair or a dog's hair. I suppose a very short-haired dog. Yeah, like a staffy or something like that. Hair feels very similar to that. It's not any harder than that. I've always wanted to feel the belly hair of a leopard, though. That always looks like the softest possible hair. But of course, to lay your head onto the belly of a big wild cat is to invite, well, I'd say a couple of scars to the face, wouldn't you, Brian? Yes. So, no, I've never felt it. But it would be quite something. There's another dove calling very gently, also called a laughing dove. What are you looking at? I don't know what this cub's looking at. Now, we had some incident this morning where the lions were running all around the car. They were getting quite nervous of the male who was chasing them. And Wendy, you're wondering if I ever have the temptation to reach out and touch one as they go past the car. Yes, funnily enough, I have had that sort of feeling before of wanting to reach out. It's a little bit like vertigo, where, you know, if you get vertigo, you feel like you should throw yourself off a high cliff, or you feel like jumping when you know you shouldn't. And that is a little bit like the feeling you get when a lion comes close by. You want to stick your hand out and say hi. But the temptation has never been that strong. It has, however, Wendy, been very strong when we go past buffalo. And the temptation to slap one on the backside as you go past is overwhelming. Now, for some reason up here in the north, we don't seem to get close enough to the buffalo to do that. But down south at Londolozi one day, we were driving along, and it wasn't only me that felt this temptation, clearly. Johnson, a substantial tracker, was sitting on the front, and we were driving through a herd of buffalo, and I was telling the guests about something or other, and I heard this mighty thwack. And Johnson had slapped one of the buffalo on the backside, and he thought it was hilarious. The buffalo didn't know what had hit her, and she went trotting off into the herd, sort of with a grunt and a burp, and Johnson was paralytic with laughter for most of the rest of the drive. But I absolutely have that temptation. But Wendy, you mustn't go slapping wild animals, please. It's not a good idea. All right, everyone, I think we're going to press on from here, don't you, Brian? We'll come back a little bit later and see what's going on, see if they haven't killed a buffalo or two. And if any buffalo come anywhere near the Djuma Dam Cam, everybody, just keep an eye on it, because it will be worth coming back to see what these cubs do. Before we move out, and you've noticed why that the soil here is very pale, and you want to know why that is the case. And it's granite based. Normally when it's white like this, there's a lot of sodium in the soil. That's what causes a lot of the sodic areas, and the sodic areas are caused by sodium ions, if you like. I don't know how much you remember of your high school chemistry, but basically sodium in solution. So if you put salt in water and mix it up, it goes into solution, and that's what happens down the slope. So when rain falls on the soil, it puts the sodium into solution, and that what it does is it creates a situation where the clay doesn't stick together anymore, and if you want to know the term for that, it's called flocculate, and the clay then comes sliding slowly over the years down the slope. So at the top of the slope you get sand with the sandy marula crest, and as you get towards the drainage lines, which is what we're on now, you get a situation where all the clay and all of the sodium builds up over hundreds of years. It's moved under the action of gravity and water into these areas, and that's why if you get close by to the big drainage lines here, the soil tends to be a lot paler, a lot whiter. There's a lot more sodium in it. You get things like quarry bushes, huge quarry thickets. You get some of the red thorn trees, the acacias. You get jacket plums, and you get a very specific sweet or set of grasses that like to grow in the soil. But that's why, in a long-winded way, the soil is paler than it might be. Right, Brian, I'm about to fall asleep. Let's carry on. These lions are so soporific. In the meantime, let's head across to Byron, get an update from him. I'm going to head off towards Beefles Hook Dam.
After that story that James told you, I gave up leopard tracking because I got too scared. So we've come to the lions. The lions have moved down into the shade, everyone. And it's so nice to see all of them again, all the little cubs. No, so unfortunately, no further sign of any leopards around. It's getting quite hot, so I think chances of finding a leopard moving around now are quite slim. But you never know, there could still be something that pops up. Oh, look at those cubs cleaning themselves, enjoying the shade. Looks like that one's, looks almost like it's got its paws interlinked. Julie, you want to know if animals always have to stay out of sight of the lions, and no, Julie, not at all. I've seen on many occasions, and depending on the areas and where these lions are found, and the habitat, you'll get lions that are feeding perhaps or drinking at a water hole, and there will be other animals wandering around. They just keep their distance, but as long as they can see the lions and make sure that the lions don't have an element of surprise with them, then they'll be fine. And so a lot of the time I've seen lions lying down sleeping, there'll be other animals around. There was a giraffe around earlier that I saw not too far from here, so not too far from the lions, but that giraffe's eyesight is very good and possibly would have seen the lions already. Wonderful Cape turtle dove calling. Work harder, work harder. Oh, that's lovely. Look at the pride, very relaxed, enjoying that cool sand. And it's so interesting, everyone. We found these lions now. We've been so fortunate. We've found them every day. I think we're almost on day 60, 59 or somewhere around there of big cats, which is incredible. But now these lions, the last week or so, we've had some overcast, cool mornings, and we've had some really hot mornings like this morning. And we've seen how the behavior changes. So we've seen these lions lying out in the open, completely in the open at 9 o'clock in the morning because there's no sun and it's not too warm. But now, much, much earlier, and these lions have been down here for a while, probably an hour already, because it has become so hot and so warm already. So they prefer to move down into the shade, into this drainage line, which is a really, really nice area for them, and they'll rest here during the course of the day, and then eventually move on a little bit later, possibly try and hunt again tonight. But we know that these lions have been feeding on buffalo just about every day. They've been very successful. Madison, you want to know if the female cubs would find, or if they'd stay within the pride when they get older. They will definitely stay within the pride, Madison. The female cubs stay within the pride, and that just increases the size of the pride. It's highly unlikely that they would move off and go and find another pride that they join. That wouldn't happen because, for one thing, the other lionesses will act aggressively towards and probably attack them. So they'll stay within this pride. I have seen, however, Madison, I've seen lions when new males come into an area. I've seen where the lioness that has got cubs has taken those cubs and run away with them, and the reason for that is she feared for their safety. She didn't want the males to attack the young cubs, so she fled and moved away with those cubs, and the other females stayed and mated with those males. And a year and a half later, those lions and the cubs actually returned and tried to move back into that pride, and there was so much aggressive behavior between those lions, they didn't allow those cubs back into the pride, which was interesting. So those lions actually then formed their own pride. There were just 4 of them, and those 4 lionesses formed their own pride, and they are very successful, and they're on Londolozi at the moment. They are known as the Mungen Pride. Those of you who do follow the lions within the Sabi Sands, that Mungen Pride was actually part of the Salala Pride. And those 4 females, young females with the oldest adult female, they ran away and moved to the west and eventually set up a territory of their own. And they now have their own cubs. Those 4 females, they've done very, very well. So they have been around the Mungen Pride. They've grown quite a bit. But that happened in 2010, which is very interesting. So it can happen that they'll split off and possibly form their own pride or start their own pride, but chances of them going and joining another pride are highly, highly unlikely, especially females. Usually what happens is the females will just grow up within the pride and stay within the pride. A beautiful orange-breasted bush shrike calling at the moment. That's the orange-breasted bush shrike. Now, Kirsten says it looks like there might be some elephant. Oh, right.